Welcome to this special edition of the Big Band Files. Doug Miles and Don Henderson joining me today. And Don, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest, kind of a reunion of sorts. You worked with him up in Philadelphia. Of course, we hear him now at WTMY with the sounds of Sinatra. So, Don, I'll let you do the introduction.
Well, I think one of the great things about it, Doug, is we hear him 2 or 3 times a week, which is really, really great. And so for our own purposes, we'll just tell everybody it's WTMY 1280 on the radio dial on the AM side. And our guest, of course, is Sid Mark, one of the creators of the Sinatra sound. And first of all, just nice to have you on, Sidney. I'll tell you, it's a great pleasure to have a chance to chat with you again.
Thank you, Don. It warms my heart in many ways, just knowing where you are and knowing where I am.
Yeah, we were chatting before we went on the air. It's a little bit chilly, like 6 to 8 degrees up there. But I'll tell you, it's interesting. I don't know that Doug is familiar with it, but you had a big celebration a little while, 3 or 4 months back, and you have 100 stations now, completely sold out in Philadelphia. And things are going exceptionally well after all these years.
Well, it was 57 years, which is interesting because I probably have been on longer than you've been born, right? You're not quite 57 yet, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure you're definitely right there. I wish that were true.
Well, you sound younger.
Well, I feel good. And that's all that counts. And having a chance to sort of chat and reminisce about some of the things we did at some of the stations in Philadelphia is always a lot of fun. But most importantly, I know Doug has a lot of questions about how you got started with Sinatra and how the show's going right now. Doug?
Yes, Sid, I just want to say, again, congratulations. I did see the article about the celebration. I think it was the Philadelphia Broadcasters Club. We have one down here that meets about once a month, so congratulations on that. Great honor.
Well, thank you so very much. Nice to be with you both.
We had a chance to chat with you a few years ago when you were on another station here in town. And again, for those kind of new to WTMY, which really recently changed formats to play this type of music, maybe give a little bit of a brief history of how you got involved with Frank Sinatra and playing that music.
Well, it wasn't really 100% my idea. I was filling in for the guy doing the all-night show. Had the evening off, or he didn't come in. I don't recall which. But I got on there and said, I'm going to be here all night. The name of the program was The Rock and Roll Kingdom, so I knew I wasn't going to do that. I also knew that the management wasn't listening, because as Don would tell you, at 5 o'clock they would go to the nearest pub. I don't think they even knew they had a radio station after that. So I said, what would you folks like to hear? And it was in November, and a gentleman who was trimming a Christmas window in a men's shop called and said, why don't you play an hour of Sinatra? I mean, right out of left field. And it was a Friday evening. I said, yeah, I'll call it a Friday with Frank. I did. The phones lit up. On that Monday, the manager called and said, nothing about that I had done Sinatra, but that they were going to fire the all-night guy for not coming in what I liked the show. And I was just getting started, so I was thrilled. And I said, not only that, it pays $35 a week, but we're going to give you an extra 10. Please don't tell anybody else. So, to make that kind of money back then, the bridge, which, unlike George Washington, was always open. I think it was a quarter at the time, and gas was 19.9, so I could afford to commute from Camden, New Jersey, and maybe have $10 left. So it certainly wasn't of a financial nature. It was something I wanted to do since I was in the service. Always thought about doing a Sinatra hour, and that's how it got started. Now, 57 years later, the bridge is $5, gas is $4, and I'm still there.
Well, Sid, it's very interesting because you have a great association with Frank himself. You also have his son on every now and then. I don't know about Tina. I don't know whether I've never heard Tina with you, but I guess she probably has been. And so you really had a close association with the entire family and the whole structure of the Sinatra sound.
As a matter of fact, I have both Frank Jr. and Nancy Jr. on this weekend. We'll be on Sunday. They're involved in a charity in Palm Springs, and they wanted to let the people in Philadelphia know what it was about and if they would care to contribute. But I'm very fortunate that Frank Jr. and I have stayed very close. I'm very friendly with Nancy. And Tina is the business person, so we really don't talk a lot.
Terrific. Well, you talked about Friday with Frank and how that got started, sort of by accident with the call. But how about Sunday with Sinatra?
Sunday with Sinatra came along with a format change. They were going from jazz, all jazz, to a talk format, and it was strictly financial. They didn't want to lose the revenue on Fridays, so they said, would you like to do it on Sunday, but only until the talk show gets financially able to carry Sunday mornings. And I said, sure. But even before we went on, the Sunday show was completely sold out, and they were never able to match the revenue with talk that we had with Frank, and that show stayed on and has been on, I guess, maybe 50 years now. And now we're on it. And when DB changed their format and new ownership, they told us that the Sinatra show was over, and pretty much the next day I was over at Don's old home at 1210 WPHT, which is a 50,000-watt flamethrower. I mean, you can hear it everywhere. I think you can hear it down there in baseball season in Florida, some parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That and the fact that we're streaming now, so you can hear it all over the world. And the syndication, of course, is in its, I think it's 30th or 40th year.
Well, they've got you started with Orange Productions, and of course had a great chance to talk to your son Brian, who sort of runs that and keeps things in order for you. And you've had a lot of great people, producers that have worked with you and helped you on the show, both Fridays and, of course, we worked together at DB at a time when you were right at the top of the list there before you moved over to 1210. And you had some great producers along with you there.
Well, you can't do it alone, that you know, Don. It's not unlike in sports. Pitcher's great, but you have to have a catcher. Not unlike Steve Carlton and Timmy McCarver. That was a great combination. It's pitcher and producer. And it's interesting because when you do Sinatra, you really get to meet all these people. Somewhere along the way, you get one guy, Timmy McCarver, a huge Sinatra fan, used to keep it on in the clubhouse when he was with the Phils. And through that, I got to know Larry Boa, who eventually worked on DV, did a Saturday afternoon sports show, and I produced that. So it was a lot of fun. And, of course, through meeting Sinatra, you get to meet everybody you ever wanted to meet. The only one I never got to meet and say hello was the late President Kennedy. But everybody and their brother would be at a Sinatra birthday party in Vegas, and there were usually just two civilians, the late William B. Williams and my wife and myself.
Well, the interesting fact that we not only talking about Bo and McCarver, I just talked to McCarver. He took a job, I don't know whether you know it or not. He's going to do the St. Louis Cardinals, 30 games on their TV network. And he's out there in wine land now for a period of time. I think he's going to be associated with a wine. And he, of course, lives right down here in Sarasota and on Siesta Key. And I talked to him on Wednesday of this week. He was heading back to New York, so he's still got his feet in all kinds of projects. And I'll tell you, you're right. Sinatra was one of his key listening points.
You know that he recorded an album, a local album?
Doug and I had him on, and we played the album with him.
Yeah, had him on, played a couple of songs. Yep.
Yeah, good guy. Always liked him, and not a bad singer either. Not Frank, but then who is?
Sid, can you kind of go into a little bit of, you talked about, you have the producers with you, but, I mean, you obviously have to kind of go in the archives when you do the, this date in Sinatra history and all that. I like the stories you tell of Sinatra recording this date and this year and all that. What kind of research do you do to put that together?
Believe it or not, it's all in my head. I always said a lot of people wrote liner notes. I lived them. I mean, I had the pleasure of being with Frank on any number of his birthdays, being invited to Vegas for a major one, the ones that he celebrated at the Waldorf Towers in New York, usually preceded by a concert. And you go out and you're in the Sinatra section, and you come back and you have dinner, and Frank was there, and the kids were there, and just about everybody who was anybody. I remember going to one of the Waldorf Towers and hanging my coat up when I had a tap on my shoulder, and the gentleman said to me, "Young man, would you mind hanging my coat up?" He thought I worked there. That was Henry Kissinger. So he thought I was the cloakroom attendant.
Well, we got a great opportunity at the then Spectrum, no longer the Spectrum now. That's gone. Yes. But of course, Valley Forge, and also down in Atlantic City at the 500 Club. So we had a great opportunity over the years to see Frank locally. You got out of town to see him. I saw most of them, in town or surrounding area.
Mm-hmm. Well, he always loved Philadelphia, and once said on stage that Philadelphia makes all the other cities seem like cookie sales. He would get a standing ovation when he walked out. 20,000 people at the Spectrum. With Count Basie and Ella. I'm so glad that I had that opportunity, because when you see what's happening with the entertainment world today, and Frank always told me, if you don't like it, don't talk about it. Talk about things you do like. Nobody cares what you don't like. So,
well, as you said, I saw him the last time I saw him was in Atlantic City, and he just walked in. He was in the lounge, walking through. He wasn't actually performing at that time. His performance was later. And he actually got up on the stand with the side people there in the lounge and sang for about 15 minutes. And when you talk about a standing ovation, people came from everywhere. Other casinos as well as where we were. And it was tremendous to see the draw that he would have by just stepping up for a few minutes.
Well, they used to say in Vegas, when he would work Caesars, that he didn't just fill Caesars, he filled the city. When
right.
Frank was in town, every club did business. It's a lot different now because there's no caliber of talent like that. Not even close.
Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, I was out in Las Vegas right before the holidays, Sid. Got to see who's become a good friend of ours at the station, Dina Martin, do a show out there.
Oh, yes.
It's to her dad, and you're right. It must have been a special time when the Rat Pack was there, and like you said, it filled the whole city. She kind of was going around the country doing a tribute to that type of music, but those days are long gone, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if you ever met her daddy, but I met Dean through Frank on my birthday, and I walked back, and Dean said, Frank said to Dean, "Come over. I want to introduce you to a friend." He said, "This is Sid Mark. And it's his birthday today." And Dean said to me, "How old are you, Pally?" I said, 44. And Dean said, 22 the hard way.
Let me just remind everyone that we're talking to Sid Mark. Sid, one of the outstanding people in radio for so many years, and has done the shows that we're talking about, Friday with Frank, Sunday with Sinatra, for so many years, and it's syndicated over 100 stations here in the United States. And of course, you have a great opportunity to hear him here in Sarasota on WTMY 1280. And we certainly have a great time talking to Sid and sort of reminiscing a little bit. I'm Don Henderson, and of course, Doug Miles with me as well. And Doug, I know you've got another question for Sid.
Yeah, I was just going to say that type of atmosphere. I know you play some of those live performances of Frank in Vegas with the Rat Pack. Maybe you can just give a little story or two about what it's like to actually be in the audience. I would have loved to have been there to see that live.
Well, when you think about some of the combinations that are on stage now, and you realize you've got Frank who would open, and then Dean who would come on, they both introduce Sammy, and then usually Joey Bishop would be there. Anybody who was in town tried to be there. Rickles was always around a whole lot. And there's nothing quite like that now. From my way of thinking, I have no reason to go to Vegas. I don't necessarily want to see any of the book shows or swimming underwater for 40 minutes. There's some performers there who can't be in Sinatra's category, but can hold their own for 40 minutes on stage. But Frank's 40 minutes went by in 5, and if there was an encore, you were blessed. And if you were lucky enough to get in the casino before he did, you'd see it, because the minute he got off stage and either he or Dean or Sammy went into the casino, it became wall-to-wall. People would just want to watch him play. And he would sit down at a blackjack table, I guess 6 other chairs, and he'd push the other 5 up, and he would play the table, which was great, with his cards in all of the slots. And he was just very special. He invited us to dinner one time. We walked into the restaurant, and everybody stood up and applauded. And I turned around to him, and I said, "Didn't think they knew me?"
Well, was it William B. Williams, Sid, that actually made him the chairman of the board, or was that someone else?
No, that was Willie. He was the guy. He and Frank went back all the way to their early years when Frank was doing a radio show on WNEW. I met Willie, and he became the guy. He was the man, and continued to play Frank right up until his demise.
Well,
did NEW. In fact, we're on NEW now.
WNEW, and I'm not taking anything away from Bloomberg. He's done a terrific job and made millions and billions of dollars. But WNEW was a great, great radio station all the time we were growing up.
Yes, it was, and eventually those format changes catch up with everyone. And you really wonder how much longer it can go. But I promised him I would do it as long as I could stand. And so far, I'm still standing.
I think younger people, Sid, if they get exposed to this type of music, you talk to some people under the age of 20 or under the age of 40 or 30 maybe, that they know who Frank is, and once they hear the music, I think the fans are out there.
No question.
They got to hear it.
I know we see it when you do something like the anniversary party, and you get 500, 600 people show up, and you look around, the demographics are perfect. If I were a sponsor, I'd be thrilled, because we had one table where the minute it went on sale, a mother and father bought 2 tickets, the grandparents came, their children came, and their children's children came. I had a nephew at age 16 that came with his friends, and they were floored because they, number one, had never seen a big band, 19 pieces strong, and they weren't really able to. We had Bobby Rydell, who's a good friend of ours, and Frank loved, and Frank Jr. calls the best of those younger singers, and Bobby's 70, and he did all Sinatra charts this time and just ripped it up. I mean, really tremendous. I'm sure people don't think of Rydell in that school.
Right.
But he had special charts written. The band rehearsed with him in the afternoon and just tore it up. I mean, it was terrific. We've had Junior,
one of the things I think I'm most proud of is the fact that, excuse me, all the years that I worked, I was fortunate enough not to be ill, and I got through, I guess, over 35 years, never took a sick day. Well, I don't ever remember you taking a sick day either. I know that once in a while you'd have one of the producers sit in and do the show if you were supposed to be somewhere, but I don't ever remember you missing a show.
No, I was ill 99, and I missed quite a bit. But that's about it.
1899?
1899. Yeah, I remember Lincoln wrote a letter to the station wanting to know how come it wasn't on. But the show stayed on, and different people filled in. And occasionally, when it was all talk, they would do a Sinatra weekend, and all the talk show guys looked forward to and did shifts during the weekend.
Terrific.
Jerry Williams, Bob Grant, Dominic Quinn. Of course, they couldn't follow directions. I'd say, here's what I'd like you to do. They didn't like that.
Well, we just lost Bob Grant, as you well know, and
yes,
he only worked with us for a short time at DB.
Yeah, DB, yeah.
He was there for just a short period of time and just passed away about, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes, yeah. Interesting guy.
Wasn't he? He was certainly.
I think his last name was Giganti.
I don't really know, but I worked at WMCA in New York filling in for him, and was funny that they asked me if I'd work over there and fill in for them, and I said, yeah, sure. And the first day I'm there is the Attica riots, and I got Governor Rockefeller on. Now, what do I know about the Attica riots or Governor Rockefeller? So you never know.
Yeah, what's your favorite team, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Sid, I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much for spending this much time with us. Good luck tonight, of course, again. And, Doug, maybe you've got some follow-up questions and thank yous that you want to get in there.
Yeah, I just wanted one final question, Sid. Do you still get new material, that maybe unreleased material Frank sang that you add to your show, and how do you find that?
Well, the only thing, I'll only play authorized selections. There is a ton of bootleg stuff around. But my promise to Frank was I'd never play it, and I still don't. But they just, for instance, issued the 20th anniversary of duets, and they've included 4 that weren't previously released. So there's always something fresh coming. Right. And if Frank Jr. gets a hold of something, he usually gets it to me immediately. And comes, like you said, comes on the show on a very frequent basis.
I guess one of the ones that they try to put on and is at San Francisco. I know he was not too happy about that release and not too happy about it being on, but a lot of people, I guess, have it that he isn't too happy about.
Well, it was finally released in the 20-set box set several years ago, but the 45 is the collector's item that people are looking for. So when does the plane get here so we can do a remote on the beach? But I thought that was part of the deal.
If I had your money, I'd have a plane there waiting for you.
If you had my money. If I had my money.
You didn't lose it all at the gambling tables in Las Vegas, did you?
No, I didn't. Never gambled.
No, I never did either. That's a funny thing. We used to do all the shows, and they talked about the lines and the betting and all that sort of thing. And I was never a bettor. I watched the games and did the games because I enjoyed it, not because I wanted to bet on it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think of the Phillies' chances this year, Don?
Well, I'm hopeful. Ruben Amaro, he's got an older team, as you know.
Bobby Abreu yesterday. Holy cow!
Hey, but how about the $800,000? How can you give Bobby Abreu $800,000 on a minor league contract?
He must have bet somewhere along the line, right?
Boy, oh boy!
And how about the Japanese pitcher, $155 million?
Yeah, Tanaka, $155 million. Never pitched a game yet.
Amazing.
As you said, $35. I can remember when I started years ago. I'm just a little older than you are. I'll be 80 in June. And,
I'm older than you.
You are?
Yes, I'm already there.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew we were close, but I thought you were a little younger. But anyway, the whole scenario is that when we started, like you said, $35 was like $1 million. And the youngsters coming along today don't realize that they want to come out of school and they want to get jobs for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. It doesn't work like that in the radio business.
No, I worked for opportunity. That's what I was working for.
Right.
I just wanted to be on and try to do what I was doing and have people listen, and it worked, fortunately.
Well, one thing we could tell people, and again, it's sort of behind-the-scenes activities, but Dolly and Billy Banks owned DB when we were there, and when you were there for all those years, and boy, if you talk about two unusual owners, they were the ones.
Absolutely. But I always tell people I went to the Dolly Banks School of Broadcasting. I remember being there 10 years and having hired Joel Dorn, the late Joel Dorn, and Joel said, "Do we get vacation?" I said, "Gee, I don't know. I've never been on vacation." He said, "Well, find out if it's paid vacation." So I went and I said to Dolly, "Joel wants to go on vacation." She said, "Well, there are paid vacations. You pay somebody to sit in for you, and then you go on vacation." So that's probably why we didn't go, Don.
No, you're right. I'll tell you. But the funny thing is, in all honesty, and I don't want to keep you too long. You've been so nice to be on with us. We're talking to Sid Mark, obviously, and for those folks down here in Sarasota, WTMY 1280, and you'll hear the show as he does it in Philadelphia on Friday nights, and of course it's on Friday nights here as well, and Sunday as well. And his syndicated broadcast has just joined us here in Sarasota and returned, I should say. And we had a lot of fun. It was a great experience, a great opportunity, and I wish the young kids coming along would have as much fun as we did, but I don't think they will.
True. Yeah. Well, again, we did it for the opportunity of doing it. Nobody does that now. It's usually how much.
Right.
And then and what is it that you do? The whole thing has changed. So I'm certainly thrilled to be back in Sarasota.
Glad to have you back. And Doug, I'll let you close it out so that we're ready to go.
Yes, Sid, great to have you with us again, and you're welcome anytime. I know we can't quite send you a plane ticket, but if you make it down here, we'll take you to dinner. How's that?
Okay, we'll charge it to Dolly Banks. That'll be good.
Sid, thank you once again. A real pleasure getting together with you. I'll see you when I get back to Philly.
I certainly hope so. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.